After 42 years of silence, the woman behind one of the nation's most powerful pastors is finally speaking out. What she reveals could change everything we thought we knew about Pastor Zachery Tims, and the story will shock you to your core. You won't believe what happened next. For decades, Pastor Zachery Tims has been a household name in the gospel world, a man celebrated for his sermons, his influence, and the empire he's built. But behind the pulpit, there has been a silence kept by the woman who has stood beside him through it all. At 42, she has decided that silence is no longer an option, and what she reveals is far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. From private struggles and hidden conflicts to moments that shook their family and congregation, this story uncovers truths that have been buried for years. By the end of this video, you'll see a side of Pastor Zachery Tims that the public has never witnessed and understand the personal cost of life in the spotlight. This is where it gets unbelievable, and it's a story you'll remember long after the video ends. For over 4 decades, Pastor Zachery Tims' marriage remained a mystery to the public. While his sermons inspired thousands, and his church grew into one of the nation's most influential congregations, the woman who walked beside him, his wife, remained in the shadows. Few knew the realities of their life behind the pulpit. While the church doors welcomed thousands of congregants every Sunday, inside the home, there were moments of tension, quiet sacrifices, and unspoken struggles. Friends who witnessed private interactions described a relationship that appeared perfect on the surface, but was layered with complexity and restraint. Why did she remain silent for so long? According to sources close to the family, the reasons were not just personal. They were tied to the expectations of the faith community, the reputation of the church, and the public image of a powerful pastor whose every action was scrutinized. Speaking out, even in private, could have had profound consequences. And yet, after 42 years, something shifted. Perhaps it was the weight of unspoken truths, or a desire to reclaim her own voice. Whatever the reason, the decision to finally speak was monumental, not just for her, but for everyone watching. But what she revealed first was a story that no one could have predicted. And it's here, at the very beginning, that we start to uncover the truths that have been kept hidden for decades. What she says next has left even long-time followers in shock. And it all starts with a confession that changes the way we view their marriage forever. When she finally spoke, the words were measured, yet filled with a raw honesty that no one expected. For years, she had been living a life that the public only saw in fragments, standing beside Pastor Zachery Tims at glamorous events, smiling for cameras, appearing as is the perfect pastor's wife. But behind closed doors, the reality was far more complicated. She revealed moments of profound isolation, times when she felt invisible in her own marriage. While the church celebrated her husband's sermons and successes, her own voice, her own feelings, were often set aside. There were mornings when she would wake up alone in the mansion, the echo of the congregation's cheers outside contrasting sharply with the silence inside. She admitted that she sometimes questioned her worth, wondering if anyone truly knew who she was beyond the title of pastor's wife. But isolation was only part of the story. She also spoke about the pressures of maintaining an image, always smiling, always graceful, always appearing supportive, even when private disagreements threatened to boil over. There were instances of arguments, of frustrations, of moments where words were held back, not because they weren't felt, but because the public eye was watching. And then there were the sacrifices. She spoke of dreams deferred, of passions she had to put aside, and of a constant balancing act between family, faith, and public expectations. Friends described her as a woman of remarkable strength, someone who carried burdens quietly while ensuring the church never saw cracks in the facade. But what sent shockwaves through the gospel community wasn't just her story of isolation or personal sacrifice. It was what she revealed about the couple's most private struggles. According to her, there were moments where the tension was so high that she feared the foundation of their marriage might crumble entirely. And yet, every time the congregation would look on, every Sunday sermon would proceed flawlessly, a performance perfected over decades. She paused at one point in her statement, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She said, "For years, I loved him, but I was also afraid that speaking out would destroy more than just my own voice. It could unravel everything." The revelation was simple, yet devastating. A life lived partly in silence, partly in sacrifice, and partly in fear. And while some may see this as a story of endurance, others see it as a cautionary tale of what fame, faith, and power can demand from those standing beside the spotlight. But even this was only the beginning, because after speaking about isolation and sacrifice, she revealed something that left the community stunned. An event that no one saw coming, and one that would force Pastor Zachery Tims himself to confront truths he had long avoided. And that is where the story takes an even darker, more shocking turn. After speaking about isolation, sacrifice, and fear, she revealed a secret that stunned everyone who heard it. It wasn't just about personal struggles. It was about something that had quietly unfolded behind the walls of their home, and to some extent, the church. Something that, if made public years ago, could have changed the trajectory of Pastor Zachery Timms' ministry forever. According to her account, there were moments of hidden conflict, decisions made in the name of faith that had deeply personal consequences. She spoke of situations where she felt betrayed, not by outsiders, but by the very system that was supposed to support them. The church hierarchy, influential members, and even close friends within the ministry. One of the most shocking revelations involved financial decisions that were kept secret from her for years. She described moments when large sums of money were moved, projects approved, or investments made, decisions that she would only discover after the fact. While she never claimed wrongdoing, she did question the transparency and the impact these choices had on their family and congregation. Then came the moment that truly sent shockwaves through the faith community. She revealed a deeply personal incident of confrontation with Pastor Tims himself, a night where tensions reached a breaking point. The conversation was not public, and for decades it remained locked behind the doors of their home. But she described it in vivid detail, admitting that it was a night that made her reconsider everything. She said, "I realized then that our marriage, our life, and even our faith were being tested in ways I had never imagined." What made this revelation even more compelling was the context. All of this happened while the church was booming, while congregants looked on in awe at a family that appeared flawless. The juxtaposition between public success and private struggle created a tension so sharp that it left many questioning the very nature of leadership, transparency, and trust in the gospel community. And yet, even amid the turbulence, she emphasized something critical. Her love and respect for Pastor Tims never fully disappeared. There was an acknowledgement of imperfection on both sides, and an understanding that their lives had been lived under a microscope, where every decision carried weight far beyond their personal world. But just when the story seemed to be about internal struggle and personal conflict, she revealed something that no one could have anticipated. An event that intertwined both family and church in a way that would forever leave an imprint on their lives. This was no ordinary disagreement or misunderstanding. It was a turning point that tested faith, loyalty, and courage. What happened next changed everything. And as she began to open up about this pivotal moment, it became clear that the narrative the public had been given for decades was incomplete. This was the hidden truth that finally demanded to be heard. The moment she revealed what had been hidden for decades, it became clear that nothing would ever be the same. This wasn't just a private matter anymore. This was a story with ripples that touched family, church members, and the broader gospel community. She described the night of the confrontation in painstaking detail. It was late, the house quiet except for the echoes of the day's activities. For years, tensions had simmered beneath the surface, unspoken but ever present. That night, however, the silence broke. Voices were raised, accusations were made, and long-buried emotions surfaced in ways that even she had struggled to articulate before. "I had to speak," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "I could no longer live under the weight of secrets, pretending everything was perfect when it wasn't." The confrontation wasn't just about words, it was about accountability, about the long-term consequences of choices made behind closed doors. She detailed how, for the first time, Pastor Zachery Tims had to face the reality of their strained relationship, the pressures of leadership, and the personal cost of life in the spotlight. It was a raw and human moment, one that no sermon could convey, no church service could replicate. But the fallout didn't stop at the home. The revelation soon reached close associates, members of the congregation, and eventually the media. Whispers turned into questions, questions into headlines. Suddenly, the story of a seemingly untouchable pastor and a devoted wife became one of intrigue, debate, and widespread discussion. She explained how friends and family reacted, some offering support, others expressing shock, and some even questioning her timing. Yet, she remained resolute. For decades, she had prioritized the public image over personal truth. But now she knew that reclaiming her voice was more important than maintaining appearances. And then came the emotional toll, the personal impact of speaking out after 42 years. There were nights of doubt, tears, and the haunting fear of judgment. She admitted to sleepless nights wondering how her words would change her life, her husband's life, and even the perception of their ministry. But in the end, she realized that silence had been more damaging than exposure. The most striking part of her revelation was the humanity behind it all. She didn't paint Pastor Tims as a villain, nor herself as a martyr. Instead, she presented a story of two people navigating immense pressure, public expectation, and personal struggle. Two people who had made mistakes, endured hardships, and ultimately survived. Yet, even with this acknowledgement, the story leaves a lingering question. How does one reconcile the public persona of a powerful pastor with the private reality of a marriage tested by decades of silence, sacrifice, and hidden truths? And just when you think the story reaches its emotional peak, she drops the final revelation, a secret about a family decision that had been kept hidden from the congregation for years. It's a moment that shocks, that challenges assumptions, and ultimately forces everyone watching to reconsider what they thought they knew about Pastor Zachery Tims and his family. As the story unfolds, one thing becomes undeniably clear. For 42 years, a powerful silence shaped the life of Pastor Zachery Tims's wife, and in turn, the public image of one of the most influential pastors of our time. What she has revealed is not just about personal struggles, it's about the hidden costs of power, the pressures of faith leadership, and the human side of lives lived under constant scrutiny. Her courage in speaking out shines a light on the realities that millions of people rarely see. It reminds us that behind the polished sermons, the public appearances, and the smiling photos, there are real human emotions, struggles, and sacrifices. It is a story of endurance, of navigating impossible expectations, and of finally reclaiming a voice that had been silenced for decades. The revelations about isolation, hidden conflicts, financial secrecy, and emotional confrontation show a truth that is at once shocking and deeply relatable. We see a couple tested by fame, faith, and power. A marriage where love existed but was complicated by circumstance, fear, and public expectation. And perhaps most importantly, we witness a woman choosing authenticity over perfection and truth over appearances. The impact of her words extends far beyond her own family. Congregants, colleagues, and the wider faith community are left grappling with questions about leadership, transparency, and trust. What does it mean when public figures maintain a flawless image while private struggles remain hidden? How do communities reconcile admiration with accountability? These are the questions that her revelation forces us to consider. But beyond controversy and intrigue, there is a lesson in courage. Speaking out after 42 years is not just an act of bravery. It is a reminder that every voice matters, that silence can carry weight, and that reclaiming one's story is a powerful act of self-respect and liberation. As viewers, we are left to reflect on our own perceptions of leaders, celebrities, and even those closest to us. How often do we assume that public success equates to personal perfection? How often do we overlook the sacrifices, struggles, and courage that remain unseen? In the end, this story is more than just a revelation. It's a call to look deeper, to question assumptions, and to value truth over appearances. It is a story that challenges us, moves us, and inspires us to consider the human complexity behind every public figure. If you found this story as shocking, emotional, and eye-opening as we did, make sure you show your support. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever witnessed someone living under such immense pressure in silence? Subscribe for more in-depth stories that uncover the truths hidden behind fame, faith, and power. And don't miss our next video where we explore more untold stories from the world of gospel leadership, celebrity influence, and personal revelations. Because sometimes the truth that has been hidden for decades is exactly the story we need to hear.